Welcome to CCNA in 60 Days. The book is version 4. If you want to hop on Amazon and get a copy, it matches this video course. It's got extra things in, extra labs and stuff. Excuse me. Please, if you can, subscribe to the channel. Most people who watch these videos don't subscribe, and it means you get all the videos from this series and also all the other videos higher in your feed. Alright, so we're on day 46 now, so we've turned in a big corner in a few days and we'll be on the countdown to exam day, which is day 61, I think. Day 60 is your last day of study. Every day do the same thing. If you've watched all the other videos, you're familiar with that. Today we're covering router security, or if you're in the UK, router security. I don't know who's correct there. And there's a lab as well you can follow along. I think Packet Tracer will be fine for this lab. Packet Tracer doesn't support everything, but it's okay. 101 Labs IP Subnetting is a book that will help you pass. That's on Amazon. IP Subnetting from Zero to Guru, which I wrote, and then 101 Labs Cisco CCNA. So without further ado, we'll get on to the lesson. Basic router security. So you need a general working knowledge of how to secure your router in a few ways: physical access and telnet access and stuff like that. And you'll have to demonstrate this during the exam. So router threats, usual things really. Someone physically accessing your router via the console port. If for some reason they get access to your server room, or as I've seen in some places, they leave their router sitting on top of a desk somewhere. People trying to telnet to your devices as well, if you've enabled telnet. iOS, often Cisco release vulnerabilities for certain releases of iOS that are plugged in later versions. Warning people when they do log into the router legitimately as well. Physical access, it kind of goes without saying, but all network equipment should be stored securely in a data room of some sort, normally with a keypad access as the very minimum kind of level of security. So protecting the console port, add a password obviously. So if someone does connect a rollover cable or console cable, they need to know the password to get access. Do try this on a router please. Line console 0 and then add a password and then log in. You can also instead type login local instead of doing password under the line console 0. You can just type login local and it will look for the username and password that are configured globally on the router. Oh, and there we go. That's just exactly what I was talking about. So try both because you'll need to know how to do both for the exam. Telnet password. The funny thing about Telnet is it's disabled on the router until you enable it. So you don't have a problem until you yourself want to telnet to the router. If you go to line VTY space 0 space question mark, you'll see how many telnet lines are available. And you can see on this router there's 16 because the number 0 is included in the range of numbers. Password Cisco and that should say login, sorry, instead of local. So telnet into a router 192.168.1.2. It's prompting me for a username which I put in earlier on here. Username Paul, password Cisco. And then the password, it doesn't show when you type it, so you won't see it, but you can see there I've got a prompt in router 2. For the exam, they'll expect you to know that you can disable Telnet and use SSH, secure shell, which is a secure connection to your router. You do need some sort of type of security image to enable SSH for your router. For Telnet, the command is transport input SSH, and that will allow SSH traffic only into your Telnet lines. You can also have transport output SSH if you only want to allow to go out using SSH or the router. And here we go. I've tried to telnet to this router. Because I'm not using SSH, it's just closed the connection. You can use SSH connection with PuTTY and other terminal emulation programs. Protect enable mode, you can type enable, secret, and then the password. Obviously I type Cisco and nearly everyone does in books just to make it simple. If you type a show run, the enable secret shows number 5, which means it's hashed with an MD5 algorithm, so it's fairly difficult for programs to guess it. If I type enable password and then Cisco, it's not encrypted. So I type a show run, the password will show. You can also create individual usernames with their own passwords. So I've created 3 here for Paul, Stewart and a guy called Davey. And then I've added LineVTY login local. So each person has got their own username and password to connect. And you can also have privilege levels per user. It's kind of a little bit, I wouldn't say it's advanced, but it's not something I find comes up in CCNA level studies. But each person that can connect to the router, you can configure their own password and usernames. So here's an example. I've gone to config T, I've configured some commands and given them levels, privilege exec level 4, anyone using the ping command, trace route, show IP interface, brief. Line console 0, I've added a password. Okay, whoever you've configured logs into the router and tries to go into config mode, but this command and other commands that aren't configured for them to use aren't permitted. So this guy's got into tried to go into config T mode, and it's basically said, not allowed. You can type the command service password You can type the command service password -encryption. That will encrypt all passwords on the router under your console telnets and enable passwords, but it's a very weak level of encryption, and there's free programs on the internet will guess those for you, so not really the best method of security. Keep your iOS up to date. You do need to check with Cisco for any problems. Sometimes upgrading your iOS can lead to problems, so most companies do have what's known as a bug sweep and a compatibility check run before they upgrade iOS on their routers. Banner message, it doesn't do anything to add security, but it just warns a person connecting to your router or switch so that they need to have authority, so it kind of gets around anyone saying, well, they didn't know they shouldn't have connected to the equipment. So you need to practice this on live routers. You type the command banner MOTD and then you enter a delimiting character, which basically tells the router the next time you type that character, you've finished off your banner message. So I've chosen the equal sign here. Warning, do not use without authorization. I've hit the equal mark and then it's come out of the configuration. Next time I try to connect to the router, it issues the warning, do not use without authorization. Cisco Discovery Protocols, basically it's used to determine what type of device your router or switch is connected to. So it detects directly connected devices and what their basic configuration and model is. You can turn it off on the router with the command no CDP run, or you can turn it off the interface only with no CDP enable. You need to know both these commands for the exam. Why would you do it? Well, I've typed show CDP neighbor detail on a router and it's telling me a lot of information about my neighbor device, IP address, platform, iOS connected, all sorts of stuff that we really may not want other people to be able to see. Okay, logging, you should log router messages somewhere. They can be logged to your console sessions so they come up on the screen, or they can be logged to the buffer on the router. If you type logging buffered and then question mark, it will give you the 7 levels of alerts that you can log. You can also send the log Here, if I type logging space question mark, an IP address of a syslog server on the network to the buffer, the console port, to a certain host, or you can use send SNMP traps. So this tells you what error message has been issued by the router. And then finally, SNMP. Simple Network Management Protocol, not covered a huge amount in the CCNA syllabus. It's kind of a Network Plus subject, but used to remotely manage your network through a graphical user interface on a master PC or server somewhere, the SNMP server. You can remotely enable, disable ports, get up a pictorial representation of your network and the equipment on the network, and carry out configurations and block people and block ports. Any problems or any trap messages they're called is sent to the SNMP station where the administrator can monitor them. Let's go through some basic router security commands. You can do this on any router. First thing I'm going to do is create a username and password. Username pool, password Cisco. The next thing I'll do is line console 0. I'm going to protect the console port with the password. You've got a couple of choices here. You can actually put a password under the console port, like password and then whatever, or you can type login local. What that tells the router to do is look at the local username and password. If I just go back to the slides to see if there's anything else I need to put in. Protect the console port, add a telnet password. Now if I don't want anyone to telnet to the router, then I just don't add any telnet passwords, because that will disable telnet otherwise. Line VTY 0 15. Again, I can do login local for this, and that will prompt for the local username and password also. Other thing, you can protect the aux port, line aux. Now I don't have them on this router, so I can't actually configure it, but this is the connection that will let you set up a modem access to the router, so known as out-of-band access. You can permit only SSH or telnet traffic in and out of the VTY lines. Transport input. So you can let everything in, SSH in, just telnet. So I'd normally choose SSH and then do a secure connection, but on this router I won't be able to do an SSH connection for various reasons. So there's that. Yeah, let me telnet to the router quickly. You've actually seen me do this on other labs. So username pool, password Cisco, and I'm in. I didn't really give you a topology, but you could do it from any of the labs really. This is the topology from the access list labs. Alright, so telnet to the router, disable telnet, which I've mentioned, transport input SSH, important to remember, protected enable mode. So we can do enable password, and then Cisco. Problem is when we do a show run, oops, enable password Cisco shows. Now what you shouldn't do is have an enable password and an enable secret, because they will both work, and it does cause problems when you're trying to do a router recovery or just trying to connect to the router. So conft no enable password. In fact, what I'll do before I do that, service password dash encryption. Show run, that's now encrypted the password in a weak reversible algorithm. So there's free programs on the internet that will crack these for you. conft no enable password. What I could do though, enable secret and then type in the password. Show run, and it's still, oh no, it's still got the it's encrypted the password now with a level 5 hash, so we've got a more secure version of the password. So we've done that. Doing passwords per users, you can see the config there actually, so I'll let you do that using these slides. Service password encryption we've already used. Banner messages, we'll just do a short banner message. I think we did this actually on the switching security. conft different types of banner messages for people to log in, or a banner message of the day. Banner message of TD, I'll do an equal. Keep out is what I'll put. Press the equal button again, tells the router I've finished typing. Exit, exit, press enter, and it's telling me to keep out. And I've got enable passwords and logins there, username and passwords. Turning off CDP, this is a good one actually. Show CDP neighbor detail. So we can see we're connected to router B, we can see the IP address, interface we're connected to, iOS version as well. Not good. So on router B, what I could do, got two options. conft, I could type no CDP run, and that turns it off the entire router, or interface serial 0/0/0 no CDP, no CDP enable. Make sure you know both of these commands for the exam. So that's turned it off. I'll go back to router A now and see if I can gather any CDP information. You might have retained this, so I'm just going to shut, no shut. Alright, it's still showing me CDP information. I think what the problem is because it's a packet tracer, it's not behaving itself. Let's go into router B. Oops, keeps trying to telnet in. conft no CDP run. We'll see if that makes a difference. Unfortunately, not everything works as it should with packet tracer. So press your up arrow, show CDP neighbor detail. Yeah, it's still showing me the information. It's just unfortunate that packet tracer doesn't, all the commands don't work properly. But you've seen the commands at least, so you know what should happen. And if you're using it on live routers, then it should turn it off. Okay, logging. We don't have anywhere to log messages to, or we don't have a server on this device. Conf T. Logging. So any error messages logged by the router we can send to an IP address. We can set to syslog server on the network. We can send it to the console through the console port. So if we're consoled in, it will show us any errors. To an SNMP server as well if we have one configured. Alright, so these are the sort of main CCNA level ways of securing your equipment. Obviously there's TACACS and AAA radius, all sorts of things which fall outside the remit, but you should have a basic knowledge of how to configure passwords, usernames so people can log in with passwords, lock down the console port, VTY lines, transport input SSH and transport output SSH if that's what you want to allow out only as well of the telnet ports.